Welcome, 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 family caregiver supporters. I pray you are having a beautiful day, a blessed day. May all be well with you. This is Caregiving in the Black Community, guys. Happy Black History Month. Today is February 4th. Yes, it is. So, guys, I need to apologize. A video we did put up yesterday had some challenges with YouTube, so I didn't have to, but I just took it down and figured I'd come back today and reiterate some of the conversation that we had. Okay, so we're talking about the 10 shocking struggles of the Black family caregiver. And yesterday we were discussing the number one thing that was dealing with those 10, and we're just going to do a couple of those and we're going to go into break it down, was dealing with those 10 struggles. The number one thing we talked about was broken families. Broken families. That was number one. We were talking about broken families. And we talked about the effect of having that broken family, dealing with not having the support, how the systemic system of racism contributed to the broken families. Okay? And we talked about how the welfare system would not allow the fathers at that time to be in the home. We talked about working on the farm, um, how mothers would immediately have their young, and then they had to work, and then they had to go right away and have a kind of like a little nursery platform way set up there so they could rush over and take care of the infant and go back to work. And we talked about how they would designate one maybe person to kind of watch after the youth. And then we talked about how the youth, when they were a certain age, they would then have to take on responsibilities as doing caregiving things as well. So yes, those are the points. So number one was broken families, and that still stems from slavery all the way up to where we are today, and we still have that now. Not as much, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I was just blessed just a minute ago by a beautiful, beautiful Black family. Yes, um, they just brought home the infant. It's so sweet. I just had to stop and just bless that infant, that baby. So sweet, so sweet. And it was the mother and the father. So beautiful, so beautiful. So yes, we're I believe we're closing the gap on this. But it was definitely something that was planned, and it has stuck in the mindset of the Black family for many, many years. Many, many years. So we often start out with a scripture, and the one we started out with yesterday that I had to remove, I'm going to do it again. Not that I had to remove the scripture, but it was in the video that I removed. Mark 10:27, and it says, with God, anything or all things are possible. Anything or all things are possible. Okay? I think it says in King James, all things. Let's look and see. Mark 10:27. I pray you're having a blessed day. Mark 10:27. Yeah. He says, and Jesus, looking upon them, said, with men it is impossible, but not with God. For with God all things are possible. I like that much better. All things are possible. So don't you give up. All things are possible. So even though we have a history of broken families, unity is possible. I like that. We talked about unity. Even though we have a history of broken families in the black community, unity is possible. You say, well, there's broken families in other communities. I know, but this is Black History Month, and we're focusing on the black family. We want to bless the black family. Okay? All right. So number one was broken families. Number two was economic disadvantages. And so I'm going to I'm going to focus in on this for a minute. Economic disadvantages in the black family in caregiving. It's definitely there. So I have an article and I love it. It's why they did a study on the black community. A couple of universities did this. And I will put in the description box exactly where this article is from so you can pull it up and look at it. Because we won't be able to do it all. But I love this. Community caregiving in the black community. Caregiving in the black community. It says the responsibility of caring for her 104-year-old mother, my mother lived to be 101, has fallen squarely on, and I'm just going to give the first name, Kathleen's shoulders. Due to her close proximity to her mother's home and the fact that her siblings live out of state, can you identify with that? I could. Okay? Kathleen helps her mother with basic caregiving tasks daily. Like what? These include therapy appointments, got to get to the doctors, lasting around 2 hours, routine evening showers or bath. She said maybe around 8 p.m. No, she says exactly at 8 p.m. So she was on a rigid schedule. Okay? She says, while Kathleen is grateful that she still gets to spend time with her mother, the emotional stress and burnout of caregiving is taking a toll on her mental health. So we just hit on a whole bunch of things right there. We just hit on a whole bunch of things. Let's go back. So we said, number one, she's thankful. She's grateful that she's able to even be able to take care of her mom or her loved one, of a loved one, okay? While she's grateful that she gets to spend time. She gets to spend time. That's awesome. That's awesome. You can't do anything better than spend time with your loved one. Okay? With her mother. Outstanding, right? The emotional stress. Emotional stress and burnout of caregiving is taking a toll on her what? Mental health. Wow. That's a load all by itself. That's a load all by itself. Let's throw some of those things in the chat. Okay? Now, she's what? She's what? So under the economic advantages, and this is what's going on, and we're gonna go through and see how this works. So economic disadvantages was one, and let's throw this one in because she talked about that. Number three is what? Mental health. Mental health. Mental health. So the mental health there. Let's throw that one in because she talked about that. Okay. And, okay, we're going to go generational differences, lack of support. So we're going to come right there. Let's go to number 10. We're going to jump down. Emotional stress. Emotional stress. Emotional stress. Now she hit on all of these. She hit on all of these. She said, okay, while Kathleen is grateful, and God knows she's grateful. I was grateful. And you, God, you're grateful. I just talked to someone on the phone, and they were sharing with me, and they were grateful. And they were sharing about their loved one and how their loved one is grateful. But their loved one, these things are grabbing them, trying to find that balance. So what is it? Okay. She said, while she is what? Grateful that she still gets to spend time with her mother, the emotional stress and burnout of caregiving is taking a toll on her what? Mental health. It says this emotional roller coaster worsens when she visits her grandchildren in New York. The guilt, and I just got off the phone talking to someone about false guilt right now. They were in tears, false guilt. The guilt of physically leaving her mother in Houston doesn't allow her to fully relax and enjoy her time with other family members. Now, what did she say? She said guilt, false guilt, guys. I did a video on that. False guilt. It's a robber. It'll steal from you. It will steal from you. What is false guilt? You're feeling like you shouldn't be relaxing. You're feeling like you shouldn't be she's probably feeling like she shouldn't be visiting her grandkids. She probably feel like she shouldn't enjoy herself. Why? Because she's her mother is in Houston and she took a trip to New York to see her grandkids. So there's that false guilt. She says here, she says, so the guilt of physically leaving her mother in Houston doesn't allow her to fully relax and enjoy her time with the other family members. She says, quote, I love this. I love my mother. I love my mother. Of course. I pray that you love your mother. I love my mother. I love my husband. I love my child. I love my sister. I love whoever it is that I'm caring for. I love them. Hmm? But it doesn't minimize the stress. It doesn't minimize the stress. This is what Kathleen said. So Kathleen's story then reflects the struggles that many Black caregivers face. While roughly 19.3% of American adults act as caregivers, Black caregivers report higher rates of intense caregiving and suffer a bigger impact from, let's go back to COVID 19, than other racial groups. That was a big hit. That was a big hit in the Black community. A big, big, big hit. And many of that, if they're still alive, some are still rebounding from that. Because there's something else they called it, you might know the name of it. It continued after COVID, long COVID or some kind of COVID. So you still got some of those symptoms or something was going on there. Okay. Cultural dynamics further complicate caregiving in Black communities. Guys, you're going to hear some outside noise like some dogs. People have pets that they're bringing them in this time of day. I'm coming on a little later than usual, so you'll hear some outside noise. So, cultural dynamics further complicate caregiving in Black communities, placing more responsibility on family members to take care of loved ones. Again, she says, what? I love my put in the blank. I love them, but it doesn't minimize the stress. That was a quote by Kathleen Leonard. So let's look just a little bit at COVID-19 because we're talking about Black caregivers and how things affect us, right? So pre-pandemic, caregiving for adult family members were already more commonplace in Black families than in white families. In fact, 18% of Black women reported caregiving compared to only 12% of white women. Similar to gender makeup of caregivers for all races, Black women take on the brunt of caregiving work. And that's just a known fact. Majority of the time, if the Black family has a daughter, there's a niece, there's someone there, 9 times out of 10. Now, I know a family, and I've had people come on my show that are male caregivers. They're male caregivers. You can hear the videos. One came on, he's taking care of his mother. One came on, he was caregiver for his wife. So, yes, they are. But the majority will be women, will be Black women. Okay? The pandemic had exacerbated stress for existing caregivers and forced more women to become caregivers, with an additional 11% of Black female. This was a survey they did, the KFF survey. Respondents reporting that they started or picked up in additional caregiving duties for family members during the pandemic. So they had more. So now that we went through that, y'all know, and I pray we don't ever go through another one. That thing came in, that pandemic. So you might have already been caring for someone, and then you were caring for someone else. So it was a lot. It was that stress in the Black community because we, believe it or not, we care for each other. It might not look like it. I know sometimes they'll show statistics saying, but Black families care for each other. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay? So we know what happened during the pandemic. So we just to say a little bit more that health risks and disruption of work habits played a big role in the pandemic's negative impact on Black caregivers. Black workers and other workers of color were much more likely to be on the front lines of the pandemic. We know that. I was on the front line, so I definitely know about that. So I want to move on. So then we say what? We say what? We said in our video yesterday we had to take down. Out of the shocking struggles is broken families. So if the families is not pulling together, that daughter, she's pulling it. She's taking care of her. She's playing the balance role now. She's juggling. She's juggling, right? As we say, wearing different hats. So she now couldn't have a job if she's allowed, depends on how sick the person is she's caring for. So now she's juggling the financial, the economic. She's juggling what? Family, because if she has kids, she's got to make sure that they're cared for. If she has a spouse and the family is not broken, then she's got to give some time there. And she's got to give the majority of her time to taking care of the person she's caring for. So now, most of the time, the last person that is going to receive any attention or care is going to be the caregiver. And that's why my show is about self-care, life care. As I just spoke to someone on the phone, I said, you know what? When we get overwhelmed, when we get burnt out, the very thing that we did not want to happen happens. Like in the scripture, and Job said the thing that I feared the most came upon me. What happens? Well, now if you get sick, that means somebody got to take care of you, while they also have to take care of your mom or your dad or whomever, plus everything else that you were doing, your kids in this one, and nobody wants that. I know in the Black community, you want to keep the family as close knit as possible. You want to try to make it stay as normal as possible. That's what we do. But if we don't receive help, it's not that help a lot of time is not there when it comes to someone coming in to offer a hand, or someone coming in to clean, or someone coming in just to respite, just to sit with that loved one for an hour or two. Still on the Daniel fast, guys. We're still there. This is I can have 100% juice. I'm gonna have me some 100% cranberry juice, and I also have some grape juice. Today is day 16 on our Daniel fast. Day 16, guys. So I'm having some juice, and I gotta go drink tons and tons of water. So we say it takes a village. It takes a village, right? I have a quote here and says, healthcare providers aren't patient, don't listen, and tend to make assumptions about African American blacks. Because a lot of times they see us in their light of things. I'm a professional healthcare provider, but I see things differently sometimes than maybe my coworkers. They say, well, I don't understand why they won't do this and why they won't do that. And I'm like thinking, yeah, but black people don't normally do it that way. That's not what they do. That's not our culture. I can't speak for blacks around the world. I'm only speaking for maybe African Americans. That's what I am in here. And I can't speak for all African Americans, but I can speak for us in the Southern culture, coming from South Georgia, in Florida. That's how we did things. You cared for that family member and you rallied around them. All right. It says, according to the American Society of Aging, black caregivers are less likely to have undergone formal training or enlist the help of paid caregivers / care facilities. This is true. This is true. What do I mean? Again, you didn't plan it, but a lot of times you fall into caring for your mom. No training. It's kind of like on the job training. You fall into caring for your husband on the job training, right? It wasn't something you planned on doing. It is sometimes it's possible that you are a professional. Now, I was blessed to have professional training. I had worked in geriatrics. I had worked in geriatrics is with the elderly. I had worked in surgery. I had done some things. So I knew how to do some things. And that helped me when I was caring for my loved ones right here. So that helped me to know how to maneuver some things. I didn't have to learn how to push a wheelchair because I knew. I didn't have to learn how to fold it up, how to put it in the car. I didn't have to learn all kinds of things. I didn't have to learn how to assist someone out of a wheelchair onto the commode or into getting a shower or doing that. I knew how to do those things. Not everybody knows that. So they're thrown into that. Now, a lot of times in the Black community, you don't want necessarily to have a paid person come in to take care of your mom or take care of your dad. You want to do that, and it's more beneficial if you can do that because you know them and you know how to care for them. You know what they like and you know what they don't like. You can read their expressions. You know when they're not feeling good. You know when they're in pain and they're telling you that they're okay. You know these things. And it makes a big, big difference when you're caring for them. Okay? So it says this can be due to multiple reasons. And what am I talking about now? Let's go back so you don't get lost. So Black caregivers are less likely to have undergone formal training or enlist the help of paid caregivers and care facilities. So it says this can be due to multiple reasons, such as the fact that there is a stigma against entrusting the care of loved ones to others outside of the family and friends and community members. I just said that. I just said that. That's how we are. I really didn't care to trust my mom to someone else. And I didn't care to trust my husband to someone else. So I felt whatever I could do, I was determined to do it. Now, did it mean that the other people weren't trained? No, it didn't mean that at all. Did it mean that the other people didn't care? No, it didn't mean that at all. It just that I felt like so many other Black family caregivers feel. No, I just feel more comfortable in caring for them myself. When it gets to the place that I can't do it, and that was my message to my family, guys, when I can't do it, what did I mean? If their condition got to a place where now I wouldn't be doing them justice, wouldn't be doing them good, I needed to yield. And that would be yielding then to a nursing home, or that would be yielding then to a rehab, or be yielding then to something, because you don't want to hurt them out of your own selfishness. You don't want to do that. That's not what we do. But when you can give the care and you know you're doing it well, you prefer to do it. It's a trust factor. Okay? It says due to a hysterical bar of access and subsequent poor interactions with medical staff, many Black families are deterred from the traditional medical system of caregiving. When attempts to use the traditional systems are made, 56% of surveyed Black caregivers report some are a great deal of difficulty coordinating with healthcare professionals such as doctors, nurses, and service workers. So now, how can we fix this? So I have a video out on how to communicate with your doctor. And some of you have said, thank you for that video. Because a lot of times, we as Black families, we know that a lot of things go against us. We know that the way the system is set up. When you read the medical apartheid book, which I have, and others, you already see how a lot of stereotypes are there. We don't feel pain like other people. You can try to express yourself, and they might not take you seriously. All kinds of things like this can go. So a lot of times we feel like they're not listening to us. They You might even feel like they don't take us, they don't really care. So we'll feel that we're not getting the best care. We're not getting the best treatment from the doctor, from the nurse. from the service worker. They have a list of something, and it says, okay, well, all of you guys have this, so we'll write this prescription. Be it high blood pressure, then you all have high blood pressure, so we'll give this medication. Don't fall for that. As a matter of fact, there's a video on that out that really talks about that. And it was done by a doctor. I'm trying to think of her name. It was done by an actual doctor. And she actually talks, a Black doctor. She actually talks to us and tell you how to talk to your Medicare providers, how to question, and tell you how to do research. Do research before you go so you can ask intelligent questions. And it's okay. You'll hear me say in my video on getting second opinions. That's okay. That's allowed. It's not that you're being disrespectful. It's not that you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's nothing to do with that. Nothing whatsoever. It's you being concerned about your care. It's you, as a Black family caregiver, being concerned about the person you are caring for, your loved one, and to make sure that they get the best care that they possibly can. So what do? Again, you do research. You look at their condition and you try to research as much as you can so you can ask intelligent questions of the doctor, of the nurse, and whoever else is giving care. Okay. It says this cultural attitude towards refusing formal caregiving assistance was noticed by it says here, Sabrina, who felt the added pressure to take care of her grandmother herself. Her family resisted a higher level of care for both her maternal and paternal grandmothers, essentially saying, we don't do that. We don't do that. We care for them ourselves. We, meaning, quote, Black people. So, the writer further explains, overall, informal sources of support such as friends, family, church organizations, and other community members are much more common for Black caregivers who enlist additional help. Yes, that's what we do. That's what we use. Sometimes the caregiver will not accept it. But in the Black community, that's what's expected. It's called It Takes a Village. And it's expected. In the old days, that was not even thought about. The moment someone heard that your grandmother or your mom was ill, it's almost like you had to fight people off because they would be coming with food. They would be coming to sit. Sometimes they would just come and sit. I can remember this story so well as a little girl. My parents and my older siblings, my older sister, her name was Rose, my mom, and they would say, well, it's Sunday, we're going to get cleaned up. They call it cleaned up, washed out. We're going up to visit. We're going to go up and sit with cousin so-and-so. And we would go, and they would sit sometimes for like hours. It would be like maybe get there like 4 or 5 in the evening, maybe, or somewhere like that. And you would sit until early dark. And then they would say, okay, we better go back home because they had to walk. But that was what it was about in the Black family, Black community in doing caregiving. They would come never empty handed, always bringing something, making sure that that caregiver was all right. How are you doing? It made a difference. We lost some of that. With the new society, now we have to make sure that we make an appointment before you come. And that's okay, that's being respectful. And you got to be careful now because you can't allow anyone to bring food. You don't know what people are bringing. You can't trust everyone and anyone. So when you are getting respite, meaning a break, I just was talking to this person on the phone, it needs to be someone you trust. It's going to be either a family member, it's going to be a friend, someone from the church congregation, someone you know that you trust. And then that in turn then gives you the opportunity to totally relax. You can relax for an hour, for 2 hours. You can go to the doctor for yourself and not have to feel the false guilt of, oh, I shouldn't be here. You can go get your nails done. You can go shopping and get yourself a new dress, a pair of shoes. You can go get your hair done. You can just restore yourself, refresh yourself. Because again, when you are refreshed, then you're in better shape, better condition to care for your loved one. Cultural practices play a large role in the dynamics of Black caregiving, both in positive and negative ways. The value placed on community and family can help provide additional support, the additional support networks, and often justifies the reason family members are willing to make sacrifices to care for their loved ones. While roughly half of the respondents to the National Alliance for Caregiving survey reported that they felt that they had no choice in caregiving. The majority said they found an important sense of purpose or meaning in their role more than whites and Asian respondents. It's what we do. It's what we do. It's our culture. It stems back from the old African ways. When I was in Africa, I asked one of he was a owner, a caregiver of the location that we were staying, making sure that we had food and the residential areas were all clean and everything as we were staying there. And as we were walking around and looking at the compound, I asked him, I said, well, how do you do with your elderly? He says, oh, we honor our elderly. Oh, we take care of our elderly. And he couldn't comprehend of the elderly being there and no one looking after them. It was like a village. This is what we do. We take care of our elderly. The article says, however, cultural factors can also have negative impacts. Black caregivers work the most unpaid hours of any race. We do. Averaging 31.4 hours weekly, I do 36. And 54% of Black caregivers provide high intensity care. We do. This is likely due to the reluctance to enlist formal medical services to assist in caregiving, although the cultural mistrust of such services is justifiable. Guys, in the Black culture, I need to bring the book one day and let you see it so you'll know how to get it. Medical Apartheid. You also heard about um, the Tuskegee exams and when we were going through with the injections and all the various things that have happened in the Black community. So when it comes to your loved one being treated, right away there's apprehension. Are they going to experiment on them, or can we be sure they're going to get the right care? I, I was one. I was one. I had to almost see everything. The only thing I could not see, and I knew I couldn't, because at the hospital that my husband had his surgeries, I was not allowed into the operating room. Of course not. I worked in surgery. I know how that goes. But everything leading up to that, whatever exam they were doing, if I could see it, I requested to see it. If I could be present, I requested to be present. I wanted to see and I wanted to hear everything that they were doing to my loved ones. A little bit of distrust on my part. Now I'm always praying and I'm always trusting God. Put my trust in God first. That He would guide those caregivers. He would guide those doctors. But if I could see it with my own eyes, I wanted to see it. Okay, because of the history, that's why. Because of the mistreatment of our folks over the years. That's why. That's why. Culturally, generational differences can also create tension in households. That can be, which adds to caregiver stress. We know that. While millennials are more likely to be open about mental health issues, that's a younger generation, the deeply ingrained stigma about mental health in the Black community makes discussing mental health a point of contention for many Black seniors. They just didn't want to talk about it. We would see, I remember in my community growing up, there was a gentleman, and we knew, and I don't know the whole issue, whether it was insurance, I don't know. I don't know what the issue was, but I know that he lived at home and received like regular family members. He lived there. They tolerated and tried to make him fit in to the best of their abilities. There would be times that his ailment would cause him to go off on tangents. They would find him, bring him back home. Now, I had a relative that suffered. He was schizophrenic. He had to have care. So my family literally had to get care for him. There was no kind of like just staying at home and handling that. But when it came to anything dealing with mental illness, majority of the time the Black community was very close on that, kind of just keeping it shut. Now it's different. We're opening up more, and people are able to receive help more. It says the role that cultural dynamics play in Black caregiving is important to consider when trying to integrate healthcare and formal support workers into caregivers support networks. It is important to consider, and it's being even more considered today. Families are realizing that some, it's okay to receive help. So let's talk about in our last few minutes, as we'll talk about the 10 shocking struggles of the Black family caregiver. And today specifically is caregiving in the Black community. So let's talk about moving forward. How are we moving forward? How are we progressing? Okay? So moving forward is essential that an effort is made to regain and establish the Black community's trust in medical professionals, particularly those that work in long-term care or assisted living sectors. So trust is starting to build when you work in there because you become like a family. I know I work in dialysis, and some people can be on dialysis. My husband was on for 20 years. He was on for 20 years. Okay? Right there. Ben. Right there. That's me. Him. So what he did was he built up, it's almost like you become a family. You get to know the workers get to know you get to know the family members, and when there's a loss, we all feel it because we're like a family. You get to know those people, like see them 3 times a week for, like I say, on 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, sometimes longer. So you begin to build a trust there. Healthcare workers must continually check in on the mental and physical health of Black caregivers. So now, we're not talking about, let's make sure we see now. Now we're going to talk, it's the Black caregiver now. Remember, I deal with the one that's giving the care. So my scene is, it's not the one in the wheelchair, but the one that's pushing the wheelchair. Right? Right? That one. The one that's pushing it. That one. So it says here, we must continually check in on the mental and physical health of the Black caregiver. How are you doing? Are you getting a break? What's happening with you in your health? How is your mindset? How are you doing spiritually? What's happening with you, my dear? Right? You see, it says on their mental and physical health, it says, and all formal support workers must be educated on how they can begin to heal the divide of mistreatment and mistrust. Now that is something that is probably getting better, but I don't know because see, we've still had some recent issues in healthcare, in the healthcare field, where I don't know, maybe some Blacks were not treated right up to par, and so that can be very hard for you to say, now let's begin to trust, because it's like starting all over again. We know we had an issue just recently with new mothers just going into the hospital and coming out safely with the baby was a huge thing, because many were losing their lives just for going in on childbirth. Partnering with faith-based or community-based organizations to spread the word about assistance for caregivers would be a step in the right direction. I'm trying to bring that here on my channel. We're trying to get it there. I'm getting some support. I'm getting a lot of people say they hear the information, they like it, they forget that they're supposed to give it a thumbs up. They forget that they're supposed to maybe share it or something of this sort. They don't fully understand that yet, but it is growing. The community is growing. I want to give a shout out to I am Rupert. He's had me come onto his channel a couple times and talk about what I do. I appreciate that. I have a lot of friends and family that share the videos with other people that they know that are caregivers, and that's great. But it says here, we got to spread the word. We got to spread the word about assistance for caregivers would be a step in the right direction. We got to let them know, guys, you're not out here by yourself. I just shared that with a caregiver. They got to let the churches. I'm looking for black churches to come together. I'm reaching out even. I'm trying to reach out even more to black churches and share this message with them. Guys, we got to let that caregiver know she's not in this by herself. She's not alone out here. We got to some kind of way come back to where it said it takes a village. We got to rally around each other. This is all we have. I'm not excluding any race. I'm not excluding anyone. I'm talking specifically now. Black History Month, the black family, the black community. We must unite. We must help each other. While family and community holds an incredibly important position in many black communities, caregiving, excuse me, is still labor. Caregiving is still work. The family and the community, the church, it holds a high value in the black community. Or it might seem like not many people are going to church these days. Nah, but they are. They are. Mm-hmm. They are. Black people believe in keeping their spirituality strong because it's the trust in God that keeps them going. Their prayer, the prayer lines, all of those is what keep people going. This is all about caregiving in the black community. It's when somebody just said to me on the phone, she says, I hear you and I feel you. She said, because you've been there. I said, I do what I do because of what I've been through. Out of my mess comes my message. I know this. So the struggles are real. That's why I said 10 shocking struggles. They're real. The broken families, the economic disadvantages, the mental health struggles, the generational differences, the lack of support. It could be a lack of support. Now, we don't touch on that. I'm going to mark that one. We need to come back to that. Lack of support. We already talked about the historical context. We know that in the workplace, we know that we're less. We know we're less. We got to change that somehow. We're less getting paid. We are working, maybe doing the same work, but we already know that. But this is not about the workplace. This is about the family. This is about family caregiver in the home. We talked about health risks, keeping our health up, in encouraging the caregiver to eat right, to get some rest, to drink some water, to exercise, to do whatever it is to keep yourself fit. And we talked about that emotional roller coaster. It can be very stressing. It can be very, very stressing. Guys, I just had someone, I just filled this one out. Right here, you can see it. Sealed up, ready to go. It's ready to go. It's another certificate. Just talking to someone, and they had a loved one that need to be encouraged. And so I'll get that in the mail tomorrow. Guys, you can email me. You can email me. You can text me. Well, email. You might can't text. You can email me right there in a name and an address is all I need. I don't need to know the individual. They don't need to know me. But when they receive the certificate, it blesses them. It lets them know someone is out there thinking about them. Someone cares about them. That's what they know. They know that someone understands what they're going through. Yeah, they do. And some are elated. It crosses the boundary. Whether it's whites, blacks, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it bring tears to their eyes. You say, what is it that is why do you get so excited about this? Because in the scriptures, the Lord tells us to encourage one another. We're to build up one another daily. We're to give honor where honor is due. We're to support one another. You know, um, I know what it's like. I didn't receive any type of certificates, and that's okay, right? That's okay. But I know now how important it is to encourage others. I know now. If you look at the scripture here, let me go back over here. And we talked about this one the other day, I think, as we get ready to close. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11. It says, therefore, encourage one another and build each other up. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up. There's many more, but you want to encourage somebody. Hebrews 3:13 says, encourage one another daily as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sins of deceitfulness. But still the word is, and even in that context, no matter what is the context, he's telling you we need to build each other up. We need to encourage each other. So caregivers, know that you're not alone. Black caregivers, know, all caregivers, but during Black History Month, Black caregivers, know that you are cared for. Know that someone knows that you're here. Know that someone is praying for you. Excuse me. I'm going to touch maybe tomorrow more on why we basically have the broken families. We know it's imprisonment plays a great part, and it's just a lot. There's a lot there. So we might throw that in to what we're talking about tomorrow. We're not sure. We'll see. But I do know this. I want to talk about the effects right now, tomorrow, not now, of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and the concerns for Black family caregivers. I just went to the Social Security office myself today because I wanted to make sure that everything was in order and there was not going to be any type of issues. Judging from what I'm hearing all over the news, all kinds of things are coming in. And we got to make sure now that we are dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We should have been doing it all along, but we definitely got to make sure that we're doing that now. So I want to make sure that look for that tomorrow as we're talking about Black families, Black family caregivers face several concerns when it comes to what? Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Like this video, share,